This conference will now be recorded.
Greetings of the day to one and all. Common Ground Scholar welcomes you to the 17th International Conference on Interdisciplinary Social Sciences at National and Kapodistrian University of Athens, Athens, Greece, 21st to 23rd July 2022. This is NVV SATYANARAYANA, a full-time doctoral scholar with my research supervisor and associate professor, Dr. Ramanujam from Bharatiya School of Management, Entrepreneur Development, Bharatiya University, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, India. Today's our topic titled Optimal Bankruptcy Regime, a Literature Review. Now it's pleasure and honor for me to invite my professor to introduce the concept. Here is floor to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Satyanarayana. I'm really so happy on today. We are going to be made a presentation on title on optimum bankruptcy. We are really thankful that, the conference authority from Kapodistrian University of Athens and University of Illinois from USA, and really wonderful. We have to meet on through that online mode in the way of video presentation. This is a title optimum bankruptcy. It's not in only just restricted only boundary of that any one of the nation. It's moving out of the boundary. It's need of the hour for need a discussion about that. Different aspects of bankruptcy. This is a nice place. I want to remember that. How did you create in that bankruptcy in that earlier stage? In ancient Greece, the bankruptcy did not exist. If a man owned and he would not pay, he and his wife, children, or servants were forced into debt slavery until the creditors recouped the losses through the physical labor. Many cities states in that ancient Greece limited debt slavery to periods of 5 years. Debt slaves had protection of life and limb, which regular slaves did not have. However, the servants of the debtors would be retained beyond that deadline by the creditor and were often forced to serve the new lord for the lifetime, usually under significantly harsher conditions. An exemption to this rule was Athens, which by the laws of Solomon forbade enslavement for debt. As a consequence, most Athenian slaves were foreigners, grey hairs or otherwise. The statute of bankrupts of 15th century 1542 was the first statute under English law dealing with bankruptcy or insolvency. Bankruptcy is also documented in East Asia. A failure of nation to meet beyond bond repayments has been seen on many occasions. In a similar way, Philip II of Spain had a declared four-state bankruptcy in the century of 15th, 1557, 1556, 1575, and 1596. According to the Kenneth S. Roof, although the development of international capital market was quite limited prior to 18th century, that's what 18,800, we nevertheless catalog the various default of France, Portugal, Frisia, Spain, and the early Italian cities at the edge of the Europe, Egypt, Russia, and Turkey have historical of chronicle default as well as. The word bankruptcy is derived from Italian bancarotta, literally meaning broken the bench, but more identically broken the bank, since the banker traditionally dealt from that wooden benches. The term is often described as having originated in Resonance, Italy, where there alleged existed the tradition of smashing a banker's bench if he defaulted on payment so that public would see the banker, the owner of the bench, was no longer in a conditions to continue his business, although some dismisses this as a folk etymology. So, in this context, with the introduction, that we have to make it on that. Some basic, the theoretical concept of that bankruptcy, which necessary condition under which economic and performable, a well-built and intensive credit market for funding business houses, an effective mechanism and perfect marketplace and well-designed system of that any country. Yeah, next please. And they, I mean, in that earlier studies, they have to make it on that very simplified and detailed manner, and make it on that so many people in the era of Joseph Comforter, Danny Roberts and Samuelson in the era of 1998, Porter in 1976, and Greicher and Sigoran 1999, and some more people, please. And the result of that bankruptcy efficiency law lies into that exposed allocation of resources efficiently in providing that entrepreneurs with an optimal ex ante benefit. Okay, that's quoted in this study of Pervakis in the year of very recent 1998, just 20 years back. And a good system of bankruptcy provide a creation of that wealth through the interest rate effect, which maximizes both undertaking of that good project and incentive to that make efficient investment by Scotch in the year of 2002. And utilizing the information of creditors than of the strategic information of manager is a paramount aspect in case of optimal bankruptcy regime in the year of 1999 by Elazar Brevich and Royan Israel. And based on that earlier studies, we try to make it on that research gap. There was a few studies that discussed in the area of efficiency and effectiveness of bankruptcy regimes in that, global west. There were insignificant amount of the studies discussed on optimum bankruptcy regimes. We have to frame that some research question towards in that, articles or papers. What is an optimum bankruptcy region? What are the determinants and what is the present scenario of that major determinants of that bankruptcy in optimum regime? And the objective of this paper to understand the concept of optimum bankruptcy regime and its determinants from the point of view of their merits and demerits, to understanding the present scenario of resolving insolvency around the world with regards to the major determinants of the optimum bankruptcy. Yeah, with this one, I'll hand over to my scholar, Puchagalya Satyanarayanan. Please, Satyanarayanan.
Thank you, sir. A wonderful linking our study with that of decades of what's happening in the entire world. And now I move on to the research methodology. So the present study is of quality to nature, basically a synthesis of 50 previous studies out of the 65 articles we have collected during 1976 to 2021, that is for about 45 years. And it is basically on the basis of secondary source of data using JGate, ResearchGate, Google Scholar, World Bank reports, and RBI reports. And we have used Pleasance and Clapper 2005 model of optimal bankruptcy regime. This is the model that they laid down in 2005. So basically, when there is poorly administered laws that govern business activities and there are no proper contracts between the debtors and creditor, generally the bankruptcy regime comes into the picture. So as to arrive at an optimal resolution between the debtor and creditors about the problems or issues that they are confronting. According to Pleasance and Clapper 2005 model, an optimal bankruptcy regime provides for prevention of taking and giving loans, maximum total value for distressed from, and it also provides for provision for entrepreneurship development, which are actually shown in this model in long triangles, so rectangles. And we have further developed it into six sub determinants. The prevention of taking and giving loans is viewed from the point of view of zombie lending and so proprietary financing, as well as maximum total value for distress from is viewed from the point of view of liquidation versus continuation of business, and ex ante and ex post efficiency. Further, the provision for entrepreneurship development is viewed from the point of view of entrepreneurship opportunity and the entrepreneurship censorship. So these are the summary of reviews we have made. Out of the 50 reviews we made, For about 16 reviews are related with bankruptcy law and procedures, and 11 reviews that we have made are related with the entrepreneurial entry and exit as well as entrepreneurship development. And 6 reviews are made with related to the area of zombie credit and funds. 5 reviews we have made which are related with the recovery of defaults. Like this, we have carried out our study using the previous studies. So coming to the findings and discussions, prevention of taking and giving loans, the first determinant of optimal bankruptcy regime. The inefficient resolution mechanisms are cause and effect of the harmful macroeconomic effects on account of excessive corporate debt. Because during inefficient regimes, the zombie borrowers and insolvent firms keep continuing their bank credit, which further escalates slowdown of investment as well as the growth in an economy. Particularly in banking sector, in public sector bankings, where politically favored distressed firms continue to extend their credit. So this is as per the World Bank report 2019, 20 countries in resolving insolvency and insolvency framework, in which Finland, USA, Japan standing in first and second and third positions with the insolvency framework index of 14.5, 15 and 13 accordingly. All the 20 top countries in their strength of insolvency frameworks are about 10 points. Coming to the first sub-determinant of prevention of taking and giving loans. The zombie lending will happen because of the creditor's inability to control the debt and their bank undercapitalization as well as the political economy antagonism. So resolving zombie loans is the foremost objective of any bankruptcy regime, because it enables the financial creditors to reorganize their credit to those who enhance healthy investment. Therefore, insolvency law should not only constrain the premature liquidation of viable businesses, but also prevent the lenders extending perilous loans, and as well as prevent the shareholders and management of going for unwise loans and involving a careless decision making. And coming to the second sub-determinant of prevention of taking and giving loans, the super priority financing. Sometimes economically worthy businesses also split up as a result of extensive debt. Keeping in view of this, many jurisdictions in the world are allowing super priority funding as a rescue financing. It is also recommended by the World Bank Group 2019, as it is a good practice which is very helpful for having continued business operations by the distressed firms, especially during corporate insolvency and resolution process, so as to have maximum value for the assets of the distressed firm. Therefore, countries looking for optimal bankruptcy regime must separate the financially unviable businesses from financially viable ones by incorporating legal provisions relating to continuance of super priority financing and discontinuance of zombie lending. Coming to the second determinant of optimal bankruptcy regime, the provision for entrepreneurship development. The study shows that there is a strong association between insolvency law, entrepreneurship development, and economic development of positive in nature. Coming to the first sub-determinant of provision for entrepreneurship development, that is entrepreneurship opportunity. Apart from the economic policies like prevailing taxes, interest rates, the efficacy of insolvency laws also influence the individual's interest to start a new venture. Therefore, insolvency regimes themselves become barrier to both entry and exit. Insolvency law that maximizes the cost of entrepreneurial exit may enhance the level of entrepreneurship in the country. Likewise, the loss of personal assets can be regarded as a key factor in assessing the degree of risk associated with the decision related to entrepreneurial entry. Hence, we can come to understand there are two extreme insolvency regimes that are too strict as well as too lenient. Too strict insolvency regimes prevent the entrepreneurs from taking risky entrepreneurship, as well as on the other side, the too lenient insolvency laws enables the entrepreneurs to wind up as easy as possible their businesses. Hence, it is an encouragement to the financial creditors to raise their cost of interest, which further hampers or otherwise negatively influences the access to credit for the small firms. So therefore, too strict and too lenient insolvency regimes are not useful for the development of the economies. The efficiency of the bankruptcy procedure is generally measured in terms of the cost of insolvency procedure, the time that it takes to resolve the insolvencies, as well as the rate of recovery of the financial creditors' claims. So the study shows that shorter the time for the bankruptcy procedure, higher the rate of bankruptcy filings and the higher the rate of entrepreneurship. Lesser the insolvency cost, higher the bankruptcy filings and higher the rate of entrepreneurship. The present picture depicts that the cost of insolvency procedure, the time the insolvency procedure is taking, as well as the recovery rate around the world in region wise. Among those OECD high income countries recorded a high recovery rate of 70.2% in a time period of 1.7 years with 9.3 cost of insolvency. Next to them is Europe and Central Asia with 38.5% recovery rate, taking 2.3 years, involving 13.3% of cost of insolvency. Next to them is South Asia with a 38% recovery rate, taking 2.2 years with a insolvency cost of 9.9%. Coming to the provision for entrepreneurship development. The entrepreneur censorship is a kind of elimination or change of entrepreneur or otherwise ownership. It can be done in two different ways, either by handing over the distressed business to more capable owners in order to increase the best uses of financial resources to keep momentum as going concern. And the second way is to liquidate the business by way of sale of assets. The first one is the most efficient one, as it enables the creditors to have a chance to realize a greater amount of their credit, as well as the large number of employees continue to work, and the large number of customers and suppliers are intact with their businesses. Therefore, the optimal bankruptcy regimes must contain the provisions relating to both entrepreneur censorship as well as the entrepreneur encouragement, as both are important for the development of economies. Coming to the next second determinant of optimal bankruptcy regime, the maximum total value for the distressed firm. The recuperation of bad loans is generally influenced by certain macroeconomic factors as well as microeconomic factors, such as the level of security, company size, business cycle stage, as well as GDP growth and supervision of loan. It has been found that the recuperation of bad loans is directly related with the secured loans, term loans, as well as banks exposed to real estate. Coming to the first determinant of maximum total value for distressed firm, that is liquidation versus continuation. The very objective of bankruptcy system in any modern economy of capitalistic nature is to promote reorganization, as it is more worthy as a going concern than that of it is liquidated. It is witnessed in case of Indian New Insolvency Bankruptcy Code, that is IBC 2016, which was incorporated in 2016 with a concept called reorganization, and it is mostly resorted by many of the insolvency professionals in the country. So it has streamlined the provisions relating to the liquidation. The law has set time bound by facilitating continuance of business operations of debtors' business during especially corporate insolvency and resolution process. Therefore, an optimal bankruptcy system that focuses on maximizing the total value of the firm must avoid over liquidations, when especially in case of there is a greater value for the firm as a going concern, and should also provide benefits for the managers to take on voluntary liquidation in times of creditors' failure to make sure efficient continuation of business firm. Therefore, effective insolvency reforms of creditor rights are positively associated with lesser borrowing costs, enhanced access to loan facility, increased recovery of creditors' slow claims, and reinforced safeguarding of present employment. Insolvency regimes that are striving for high insolvency recovery rates should allow the viable businesses to continue as going concern, because it strengthens not only the entrepreneurship development but also safeguards the present employment in the country. Okay, the given picture depicts the rate of recoveries in countries having the insolvencies that are supporting closure of business as well as going concern concept. The countries in which the insolvency laws encouraging the closure of business witnessed only 30.43% of recovery on an average, whereas the countries in which the insolvency laws encourages the going concern concept, the continuation of business, are able to witness 71.1% of recovery on an average. So these are the country-wise recovery rates. Japan 92.1%, Finland 88%, UK 85.4%, USA 81%, and India 71.6%. These are the countries following the insolvency law that encourage continuation of business. Whereas in Russia, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, as well as China and Bangladesh, these are very low, as they are following the insolvency law that encourage closure of business. So it is clearly understood that the countries following the insolvency laws that encourage continuation of business are witnessing higher recovery rates, whereas the countries in which the insolvency law is encouraging closure of business are witnessing very lesser rates of recovery rates. Coming to the ex ante export efficiency. Ex ante is nothing but maximization of the realizable value of financial creditors' claims, whereas ex post efficiency is nothing but achieving the maximum total value for the distressed firm. Therefore, optimal bankruptcy regimes should strive for maximum total value of the distressed firm as well as the maximum realization of admitted claims of the creditors. In this case, IBC is the best example. In the very initial stage of its inception, is able to realize 53% on an average in fixed time bound manner in case of past 1230 companies. Now it is enhancing its recovery rate on par with the emerging nations in the world for about 71.1%. So implications of the study. The present study is based on the synthesis of very few previous studies. The study discusses what is necessary in terms of effective mechanism and risking system for the economies to do well. It further helps the governments in framing the insolvency law in which way that it delivers the outcome that benefits not only the companies but also the creditors. It further encourages the economies which would opt for liquidation of distressed businesses to go for reorganization of distressed businesses so that they can arrest the possible loss of claims of creditors, entrepreneurship development, and present employment. Coming to the suggestions and conclusion, the insolvency law is to be framed in such a way that it delivers the outcome not only benefits the company but also the creditors. Since the owners always try to use the assets in the most economical efficient manner, therefore the outcome is to be distributed as returns to the creditors in the best possible manner. The credit facility in the economy will be extended based on the rules that govern the distribution of creditors' returns. as well as the role of insolvency is important to make sure that capital is put to use for the best possible outcomes in the economy. And finally, the study concludes that the optimal bankruptcy regime increases entrepreneurship. On the other side, it reduces the number of liquidations and further reduces NPS and increases productive investments. Thank you. Thank you to one and all.
Yeah, thank you, Satyanarayana.
Thank you very much.